Hello, I'm Ari. Listen up today. The Israeli Air Force has carried out a series of targeted bombings in southern Lebanon. Last week was particularly eventful in that regard, but today's attacks have increased in intensity. The Israel Defense Forces confirmed that they attacked Hezbollah weapons depots that were literally embedded within populated areas. They weren't isolated facilities in the middle of the countryside like last week's. They were weapons warehouses located in the heart of civilian towns. Before the attack, the Israeli army issued evacuation warnings for villages like Brashid and Al-Mahadal in that area of southern Lebanon. The order was clear: leave certain buildings because precision strikes are coming. The idea was to minimize civilian casualties as much as possible. Prior warnings, use of guided munitions, constant aerial surveillance, and additional intelligence to refine the targets. Meanwhile, reports from Lebanon indicated impacts on buildings in those villages right after the alerts. So you can see the pattern of these past few months. Hezbollah places military infrastructure outside and inside towns and cities. Israel gives a warning, attacks the depots, and the result is this almost inevitable mix of war within civilian areas. In light of all this, Israel's message is twofold. On one hand, we are willing to strike deeper into southern Lebanon, and on the other hand, we are going to try to do it with the greatest possible precision. But we are not going to accept Hezbollah using entire villages as human shields. That is to say, they are not going to go back to sabotaging attacks just because they put the warehouses inside civilian neighborhoods. The question that remains is whether this is just another round of localized strikes or if it is the prelude to a larger ground operation in the north, which has been talked about a lot in recent weeks. Precisely, all these attacks that Israel has been carrying out in the last 20 days are based on intelligence reports indicating a strong movement of war material to southern Lebanon by Hezbollah, as if they are preparing for an incursion with Israel, a new round, and even by Hamas militias that operate and move there in that territory. Israel's policy is very clear. If there is a latent threat, it is destroyed. And the truth is that they give them no respite. Thank you very well. We now move to the Gaza Strip, to Rafah, the underground world of the tunnels. In a new decisive blow, the Israel Defense Forces officially confirmed that the commander of Hamas's Eastern Rafah Battalion, his deputy, a company commander, and another operative died when they tried to escape from the famous Tunnel 200 in the southern part of the Strip. The four were detected coming out of the tunnels in eastern Rafah, in an area that is now under Israeli control and where it is believed that there are still dozens of Hamas fighters trapped underground. Those famous 200 who are actually not 200, but that's how they became known and now everyone knows them. So, the reality is that at least 100 Hamas men were trapped there when the ceasefire began. It's been over a month now, and they're having a really hard time. And hunger is starting to get to them. Israel is keeping a very close watch there. There's no way to evade the surveillance drones that are flying over this area 24 hours a day, and of course, the troops on the ground. The names of the eliminated terrorists are important because we're not talking about just any terrorist. Mohammed Bawad, who was the commander of the Eastern Rafah Battalion. And pay attention, Abula Amat, son of the high-ranking Hamas leader. Who is the fourth eliminated terrorist's father? Well, it's none other than the son of Gassi Amat himself, who is very well known, the one who managed to survive the last assassination attempt by Israel in Qatar. Amat is a member of the Hamas Political Bureau. A very well-known face of the organization publicly justified the kidnapping of the Vivas from Kefir and his little brother Ariel, who were ultimately killed in captivity. In an interview, when asked how they justified kidnapping the Vivas, he replied with something like this: "Should we put pressure on Israel and its government to make them change course?" Today, Gassi Amat himself has his own son dead, killed in a tunnel in Rafah. In fact, the leaders of Hamas who live comfortably in Qatar attended the symbolic funeral of Abula Amat. The son of this high-ranking official justified the kidnapping of Los Vivas on television. There's a strong contrast here. The leaders of Hamas are burying their children in Doha, while thousands of Israeli families and also Palestinian families continue to bury their own because of decisions made precisely by this leadership that lives there, in the comfort of their luxury in Qatar. Now, a key point that is hardly ever mentioned. Last week, Israel presented Hamas, through intermediaries, with a proposal for the terrorists trapped in the Rafah tunnels. Surrender your weapons, come out, be arrested, and save your life. Instead of dying buried, they were offered the option to live and someday be released under future agreements. Hamas initially demanded total immunity for those trapped in the tunnels. Hamas, which at first demanded total immunity for those trapped in the tunnels on the other side of the yellow line, responded on Telegram. Of course, we're talking about the leaders who are comfortably over there. In Doha, Qatar, they demanded that surrender was not an option. That is, Israel opened a door, but the Hamas leaders themselves closed it. And they send the message that it's better to die as martyrs than to surrender. They themselves are the ones who condemn their fighters and their own children to be trapped and die in that underground maze, even if those down there are their own children. And speaking of that maze, Israeli commandos continue to discover and destroy huge sections of tunnels attached to the famous and largest one discovered until a few weeks ago, the 7-kilometer one I showed you in a previous video. There are no official figures, but estimates that have been circulating for years say that each major tunnel cost several $millions. The excavation teams advanced about 4 to 5 meters per day, and a single tunnel could require weeks or months of continuous work, depending on its complexity. All that money, that cement, that steel, that electricity was not used for hospitals, for housing, or for civil infrastructure that pro-Palestinian activists around the world are demanding so much today. The thing is, what they are demanding, the people of Gaza could have had millions of dollars that were at their disposal, which they decided to invest in an underground subway designed to hide leaders, move weapons, move hostages, and launch police attacks against Israel. The elimination of commanders like Abdallah Ahmad and the destruction of these large sections leaves Hamas without that underground nervous system. Reduced mobility, logistics, and safe shelters. However, it's important to note we haven't seen a major surrender yet, and honestly, it's uncertain if we ever will. These are very localized battles, pockets of resistance in isolated chambers of the tunnels, and a war that becomes more dangerous for everyone, precisely because it is fought tunnel by tunnel, section by section. One last important detail. Before the release of some hostages, Ghazi Ahmad himself declared that it didn't matter how many were still alive. Today, he is mourning as he buries his own son. It's not that this makes up for the damage, but it shows how in the end, the violence they promote ends up hitting their own home as well. And the truth is, it doesn't seem like they care much. Not now. Is staying informed about events in Israel important to you? You can subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell so you'll know when I upload a new video, and of course, make sure to share it. Now we're moving to Germany. Listen carefully, with an image that has a lot of contrasts. At a German Air Force base near Berlin, a ceremony was held where the Ministry of Defense of Israel delivered to Germany the first German missile defense system. 3 fully operational. Let's reflect. 80 years after World War II and the Shoah, Nazi Germany attempted to destroy the Jewish people. Today, it is a democratic country whose skies will be protected by Israeli technology. The Arrow 3 is a long-range missile defense system capable of intercepting ballistic missiles outside the atmosphere at more than 100 kilometers high in the exoatmospheric phase of their trajectory. It is part of the highest layer of the Israeli defensive umbrella and has been tested in real scenarios with great effectiveness against missiles launched from Iran, Yemen, and other fronts. Germany targeted it right where it was being tested. And this deal is worth around $4 billion and is considered the largest defense export in Israel's history. This first system is being integrated into a German base, and in the coming years, by 2030, they will add more to have full capability. But beyond the numbers, there's a symbol that remains engraved. During the ceremony, Hatikvah, the national anthem of Israel, was played at an Air Force base. Not so long ago, the skies over Europe were dominated by Nazi bombers. Today, a system made in Israel protects Germany from missile threats, including those from the modern Nazis, as many here call the Iranian regime. It's an image that, for those of us who live in this country and carry the memory of the Holocaust very close, is comforting and at the same time makes us think about how history can take huge turns in a short time. Alright, pay attention, we're very close to resolving the drama of the kidnapped bodies. The body returned to Israel last night by Hamas was identified as that of the Thai citizen Sutisak Rintalak, 42 years old. Sutisak was working in agriculture at Kibbutz Berry's orchards when he was killed on October 7, 2023, and his body was taken to Gaza or kidnapped to Gaza by Islamic Jihad. As has happened with other foreign workers, Thais and Nepalese, Sutisak's body will be returned to his country to be buried by his family. He supported his household. A man who came to Israel simply to make a living in the fields and ended up caught in the middle of the horror of October 7th. With this identification, only one body of the kidnapped remains in Gaza, that of Police Sergeant Major Rengibli, murdered while helping to evacuate civilians during the attacks, and his body is still being held in the strip. To understand Israel's frustration, we must recall something from not long ago. Hamas handed over human remains through the Red Cross, which after forensic analysis in Tel Aviv, were found not to belong to any of the hostages. It was a brutal blow for the families who were waiting for news about Rangibli and Sutisak himself. And the deception was this. It happened again yesterday when new remains were brought to Israel that were not identified as belonging to any of the hostages. Hamas, which doesn't stop its games, quickly rushed to hand over the body of the Thai national. Another example of how Hamas even uses bodies as a tool for pressure and manipulation, and let's not kid ourselves. Hamas knows and understands very well that once they hand over the last body to Israel, they'll be left with nothing. They'll lose the handbrake that keeps Israel in check, and they won't have nothing else to manipulate or blackmail the state of Israel with. They know that once they reach that point, they'll be at Israel's mercy and whatever actions it plans. Now, at least, Sutisak's family can give him a burial in Thailand. Rang's family is still waiting. And behind these names, there's something that sometimes gets lost in the numbers. We're talking about people who came to work in the fields, about young police officers who rushed to rescue others under fire, about families who have been on a roller coaster of hope, anguish, and grief for more than 2 years. Okay, if this content helps you better understand what's happening here in Israel and in the region, then I invite you to subscribe, leave a like, and share this video. See you!